A beautiful Sunday it is for us to do this again. Welcome to the Discourse here on Classic FM 97.3. Today on the Discourse, we'll be looking at a whole lot of issues happening in our politics. My name is Sulaiman later, but before that, quickly, the news that broke this morning will mean a lot to Nigerians as well as our guest you'll be meeting pretty much later. And it has to do with the very unfortunate news of the passing of the Supreme Court Judge, Justice Sylvester Unguta, who died today. He reportedly died in his sleep at his official residence in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and he hailed from Amofia, Ukawo, Onitsha local government area of Ebonyi State in Nigeria, southeastern part of the country, and he's expected to have bow out of service on March 30 this year upon attainment of 70 years mandatory retirement of age. And a couple of other issues trending here in the country. But today we are happy and privileged to have someone who's been keeping tabs on issues here on our polity. He's someone many Nigerians love to hear profit solutions and talk about issues here. He's none other than a legal practitioner, Notary Public and Barrister at the Lincoln's Inn in London. Daniel Bola, good to have you join us today on the program. Well, Daniel, I think I guess you can hear me. Well, it doesn't look like he can hear me. I
guess it's a network problem. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. I was going to say, sometimes you really can't be too sure with, devices. Just for a bit, we could hear each other, and now I just couldn't hear you. So, Daniel, welcome to the Discourse here on Classic FM.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you and your viewers today.
Yeah, the good thing here, quickly, you heard him also say viewers, because this program also will go on the Classic FM YouTube channel, where you can also get to catch up on what's been discussed on the show here. Quickly here, Daniel, the theme here is that a whole lot has been happening in the country. As you try to chase one, so many others happen. With the speed to the extent that you can hardly catch up. But again, insecurity and security issues, our children, yes, these are young and the future of Nigerians. They've been in the news lately, and as much as I recall then, when we had Chibok, you spoke about us having a safe school program in place and how best we can actually care for our children. And has it changed? Because it's almost 6 years down the line now. Has anything changed? Any difference from what you saw then in Chibok?
No, I honestly do not think so, because I think when this crisis erupted, when the Chibok girls were kidnapped, actually the government never took it serious. It was, I think, Michelle Obama and a couple of international celebrities that took it to the limelight. Aided by the reportage of the CNN anchor. The government became very, very serious about it at the time, because election was at the door and everybody wanted to, cash on it and win election. After election, the first few months, we saw seriousness and zeal on the part of government, not just fighting insecurity in Chibok, but in every part of the country. But since then, there has been DAPCHI, there have been quite a number of schools, and now we have multiple schools in the Northwest. We're even hearing in the Southeast and South-South, possibly intelligence. The intelligence that is coming, possibly this thing might replicate itself if nothing is done about it. So I think that with respect to insecurity, I'm fully short of using the word government is overwhelmed, but the situation is palpable. Palpable in the sense that we don't have a police structure in the country that will deal with internal security. And at the same time, the military, the number of soldiers we have is not enough to deal with the crisis we have across the length and breadth of the country. So when you bring it down to schools, I am telling you, more than 92, probably 98% of schools, tertiary schools, are not secured. No security there, no infrastructure that will place in infrastructure in form of a surveillance system that you'll be able to use in tracking criminals, assuming without considering that they operate. So as a lesson, I do not think we do have a marked shift in terms of government policy that will deal with the situation. Maybe with the recent event, the government is waking up when you look at the order of the president. So hopefully in the coming days, when military and security forces begin to take advantage of the order, the president say, I accept responsibility for whatever you do. So that means they have no excuse but to deliver.
We'll come back, frankly, to that order given by the president. Listening to you, I recall then you had also, told the world that what happened in Chibok wasn't too far from where you hail from. And because in explaining how it happened and how the world didn't, were made not to believe that children were taken in such numbers. It's almost the same thing we're seeing now with Dapchi, with Kagara, and so many of these other places, especially in Zamfara State. Now, let's look at the laws. That's one aspect I'm happy about, that you're here. When it comes to security matters, a Nigerian governor will look you in the eye and tell you that he's just a duck sitting, there with no powers over his state. But again, sometimes we see them also wield such powers when it comes to maybe an individual who seem not to be in the good books. Take us through that. When a governor tells the world that I don't have powers to truly order any security chief in my state to move on, is that why we're seeing what we're seeing in many of these places?
I like the way you even captured it when you said that when it comes to individuals, they are very, very powerful. But when it comes to the general issue of insecurity, that's when they say we are chief logistic officers of the state and we are not a chief executive officer. Well, actually, if you look at it on both sides, there's a little bit of a predicament on their part. But then if they have strong political will, they can take advantage of what they do have to convert it. For example, you find a governor that is fighting probably the government at the center without prejudice to the fact that the members of the Secret Service agent protecting him, the police, and possibly in some cases you have the army, are all agents of the federal government. But he still has his way of resisting federal might with the same federal agents with him, if he's serious about it. When election is at the door, you also see their enormous powers across the length and breadth of their states. But in a general sense, or rather from the general point of view, our laws actually do not support the empowerment, or our laws are not effective enough to give that platform for the governors to take control of their state in the real sense of the word. For example, army, police, aviation are all covered by the constitutional provision of Section 251 and introduced of the Constitution on the exclusive list. They are within the exclusive reserve of the federal government. So it means that if you're a governor, you don't have control of the police, you don't have control of the army, you don't even have control of the airspace, assuming the insurgents or the bandit or criminal elements are using drones, choppers, which is what is happening all over the world now. So the best you can do is to depend on the federal agents that are positioned in your state, like the commissioner of police or the GOC command, and any other director of DSS. If you have a good relationship with them, they can help you in dealing with insecurity in the state. But if you have a problem with the president, then you find it difficult also controlling. I think that's the reason why people have now advocated for state police. But I am pushing my own argument further to say that we are already, as a country, I think states are already beginning to twist the federal government into conceding with the idea that you have no option but to permit state police. For example, in my state, you have what we call joint civilian JTF. Of course, in the Southwest, you are now seeing Amoteco. In Kano, you see Hizbah. So before the government knows, you will lose the power of the state police. But even with these structures, you still find out that the insurgents are able to deal with them because the firepower that the insurgents and criminal elements are using is quite massive. So I am suggesting, I said it in a different forum, that the president can at this time, together with the National Assembly, establish the National Guard, like the way we have in the United States. The National Guard can comprise, they have the same, they are like the army. They have the same post, the same ammunition, the same authorization. But the National Guards will be under the control of their respective governors, but mandated only to respond to crisis situations like, for example, humanitarian or terrorism-related offenses. So, for example, if it is internal, things that are within the purview of the police, you can't call the National Guard. You don't have the powers as a governor to call the National Guard. But when it has to do with dealing with insurgents, or maybe there's a serious humanitarian issue, then as a governor, you can call the National Guard. You see, if we establish National Guards, and let's say in every state you have, let's say 10,000 of them, by the time you have the 36 states, you see the way you complement the Nigerian army. And now, the way crime is being perpetrated in the country is of a nature that police can't deal with it. You have to, invoke the powers of the laws that we have to establish a security structure that will resist or overpower the criminal elements, because they're all over the country.
When you say, we'll come back and talk about the police, because the good thing here is that you've highlighted something. You started by talking about the military, the army, and you also have said that even though they meet with the governors on a weekly basis, having their security meetings, the GOCs and the Commissioner of Police, there's little or nothing the governors can do. Now let's dig in deep now and look at what we have seen in states where children have been, kidnapped in their hundreds. Isn't it the primary responsibility of a state governor to protect lives, and property of those within his or her state? In this case, I don't think we even have any female governor, so within his state. So how are they supposed to go about this? Keep in mind that the issue of kidnapping didn't just start. We started off by reminding our listeners about Chibok. After Chibok, we also saw what happened to Dapchi. We also saw what happened to the boys' secondary school. So it's a case of governors to be expected to be proactive, which we haven't actually seen at the moment. So talking about what we have seen so far, how should they have gone? Perhaps maybe they have done that and we haven't actually seen it. Help us here. How are the states supposed to go about protecting these children, or have they done that in your own assessment?
In my state, for example, Borno State, the governor has done more than enough, and I give you examples. What they did was, because the Boko Haram started from Borno State, the Northeast, by saying that their ideology is to destroy the Western system and establish Islamic law. In a swift response against the Boko Haram, the governor, the immediate past governor, and the present governor ensured that they establish world-class schools throughout the state. It's like you're sending back the message that Western education is here to stay. That's one. Number two, they ensure that all the infrastructure and facilities necessary to facilitate the learning of the students were made available. But one problem that they have, which of course leads to what we're discussing today, the security of those schools. I can tell you that apart from placing reliance on military, properly strategically position the military formations to fight Boko Haram, and very miniature in the recess of the world, you can't go to all these schools we have mentioned across the state where you find, let's say, a police post or a military presence, so to speak. So even though we have built infrastructure, we put in facilities there, they are still at the mercy of the insurgents. And that's why what we suggested the other day was, I said, if the federal government is not adverse to the idea of creating police or National Guard because you feel it is still part of bloating the government, what you can do is to begin to legislate it into law, where you accept the operations of private security service providers. So that, for example, the state government can enter a contract with private security service providers who will provide the security in all the schools in the state. And these private service security providers will be given arms and ammunition, just like the regular forces that we have. So if you have, let's say, 300 primary schools or primary plus secondary schools in the state, you can be guaranteed, because of the contract you've signed with these people, they will provide 24-hour security surveillance system in those schools. So you're giving the pupils, or the students in this case, the confidence that they can relax and study. But as it stands now, there is no part of the Northeast, and now it's going to the Northwest, where you can sit down and read with your mind there. Because anytime your school can be invaded, especially those ones that are living in boarding school. And what we call boarding school, believe me, Suleimani, when you get a chance to see schools around Borno State and the Northeast, you will just think it is one deserted land somewhere in Kabul, in Afghanistan. You will not believe that these structures are schools. And you will hear how much comes into the state. You will hear how much of money the governor is wielding. The thing is that we are simple. I give you another example. Just last year, we had the pandemic. There was shock in the land that if this thing should come hard on Nigeria, we're going to lose a lot of people. And we thought that our public office holders learned their lesson. Go around the country. Not more than 3 or 4 states, you will say, have built world-class hospital to deal with not just this pandemic, but future pandemic. We seem not to have learned our lesson. And coming back to the same issue of this insecurity and secondary school, I can tell you from where I'm coming from, schools are built, learning facilities have been installed, but there is no security of those places.
You know, the thing here is we're getting close, because you also talked about the state of boarding schools, which is one of the main targets of these insurgents, or these, as the country has chosen to call them, bandits. They go in there to every boarding school and just take the children away. Quickly, we're trying to see why this hasn't actually stopped. Do you think Nigeria as a country, or these states, have been able to discourage the bandits? Because keep in mind, when you talk about agitators, as we have seen people like Sheikh Gumi trying to make some people believe that these are agitators, there must be something they are agitating for. And you say, if you don't give us A, B, C in our community, just the way we've seen in so many other places, then we will keep the children until you get us A, B, and C. Clearly, this is criminal. It is something that has to do with money. Do you think that they have been so encouraged by states to the extent that we haven't actually seen a reduction in kidnappings?
For kidnapping and banditry, I think Nigerians are beginning to learn that this criminal element are introducing an economic concept, where you have criminal cartel taking advantage of this for commercial purpose. Wherever you see crime, you will see, people trying to commercialize it. This banditry, I'll give you an example. Heinous as they are, they have a clearly set out objective: destroy Western education, destroy the constitution of the country, don't recognize the legitimate government, enthrone your own government. So criminal element by their objectives. And even when you are advised to negotiate, it is the objective that will determine. So like Boko Haram now, do you need anything to come and tell you that by their objective, you will never have a meeting point? Because the government can never concede to its legitimacy. The government will never destroy the constitution. The government will never establish that Islamic State. So you know that you treat them as terrorists. I will now take it to the Niger Delta. The Niger Deltans, those who are agitating for resource control and derivation formula, they have a clear objective. All you need to do as a government, you sit down with them and help them appreciate that within so and so period to so and so period, this is much that has come to your Niger Delta, but those you hold in trust have not managed the resources. Or you can say, okay, can we find a way of using government power to bring that development directly to you and bypass the people in your area. So it is objective. The bandit do not have an objective. And with the greatest respect to Sheikh Gumi, I think he's taking advantage of the crisis situation to bring himself back to limelight. Otherwise, for the two meetings he has had with them, they have not been able to articulate a single thing as their objective. One, they don't live in the city. They live in the forest. Number two, they say they do not have education. I don't know if education schools are established in the forest. You have to come to the city. Three, they say they don't have healthcare facilities. We haven't got healthcare facilities in the city, not talk of in the forest. Assuming you identify yourself and say, this is our habitat, this is where we stay, and we feel that the development should come to us, then you have a clear objective. These individuals, what they do is they kidnap and collect money and let the people go. Kidnap, collect money and let the people go. And when they started with just individuals. You know, they kidnap someone, they get 500,000 or 1 million from his parent. And then probably, only God knows who gave them the idea that once you start kidnapping school children, you are going to command not just national attention, but even global attention. Because if the government does nothing about it, there will be a global outcry. And you are better able to negotiate with government and then gain big money. That's why I suggested the other day, I said, the president should summon a council of state meeting and reiterate it, because we're hearing one or two governors saying they are considering to that idea. Make it clear to all the governors that any state that the governor negotiates with bandits, that state will be declared a state of emergency, and the approval of the National Assembly will be sought to remove the governor and install an administrator. Why? Because if the bandits subdue and intimidate a chief executive officer of a federating unit, then that means the territorial integrity of the country is under threat. So in a nutshell, these bandits do not have an objective. They are just criminal elements. And we're even looking at the possibility that politicians and other businessmen might be using them. Because now you know that if you get 3, 4, 5 students from a university and keep them, I say university, secondary school, kidnap them to somewhere, you are likely to get 200, 300 million from government, and you release them. And I have heard both the National Security Advisor, he was quoted to have said that intelligence coming in has suggested that there are conspiracy between traditional head, district head, and even some law enforcement. The governor of Zamfara also said there is a policeman, an army officer, and district head, and one emir that are currently under investigation for criminal conspiracy. You can see it started with guys in the forest, and then you are now bringing it back to the cartel that are using them. So if the president does not take a decisive step, for example, this is going to replicate. I said it the other day, that the order that the president gave is legal and constitutional. Because even if you look at Geneva Convention.
Hold on. When you say the order, are you talking about the shoot at sight order on anyone who illegally carries arms?
Yes, the two orders. The first one, no-fly zone.
Yes.
And then the shoot at sight of any criminal element in the forest. The holes.
Oh, there seems to be a glitch there.
Lethal weapon. You see, the president was pressed. Shooting, you are likely going to have human rights situation. Right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. There was a glitch there. Maybe you can just go back because the question was, I asked the question so that my listeners can hear you properly.
Right.
Yes, there was a glitch. It was dragging. So
okay.
You can go all over again.
Okay. Right. All right. So I'm saying that the president made 2 orders. One, an order of no-fly zone, Zamfara's no-fly zone. And number 2, an order that the security forces, if they find any person, criminal element, holding lethal weapons in the forest, they should shoot aside. And I say that the order is strategic, the order is constitutional, the order is backed up by law and even backed up by Geneva Convention. Geneva Convention regarding rules of engagement said any civilian that holds a lethal weapon is no more a civilian, and the use of deadly force is authorized. So there is no America or England that will come and teach us human rights in this sense. Because one, the reference is to a criminal element in the forest. If they say criminal element in the city, then it can bring issue of human rights. But anybody who is holding AK-47 in the forest, for God's sake, are they holding picnic there? Definitely they are planning evil. So that order is and Obasanjo wrote a letter and he was trying to admonish the president on human rights. So recently I was on air where I was confronted with that question. I said, with the greatest respect, for some of us that memory still serves us right, we remember during Obasanjo, he was very brutal. And I support that idea during his time. That's why criminal elements didn't take over the government. He was brutal. In fact, in his own case, he even ordered that they should shoot members of OPC who refused to surrender. He wasn't even talking about guns. Remember, it was during his time we had these cases of Asari, Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Asari Dokubo. We have Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Ganil Adams. We have Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Wazirike. These are the three regions of the country that these guys were claiming agitation. He was very brutal with them. It was during there was nothing like carrot approach during his time. He was very brutal. And we have gotten to that point in Nigeria. I must be honest to your listeners to tell them that those who are behind the idea of dialogue and carrot stick on people who are constituting a threat to national security are not being fair to the family that lost their family, their loved ones, their properties, and especially families that have been displaced in their historic homeland.
Talking about individuals now, taking us down memory lane with those three individuals from across the three geopolitical zones then in Nigeria, Southeast, Southwest, and the Niger Delta region at that point in time. What do you make of the gentleman now, being addressed as a rights activist in Nigeria Southwest region, Mr. Sunday, otherwise known as Igbo? Does he also fall within these categories of persons during the time of President Obasanjo?
Right, if it was the time of President Obasanjo, he probably would have considered him like them, but I don't see it that way. You see, in the case of Igbo, one, he was never seen carrying arms and ammunition. Two, he never encouraged that people should destroy military installation or installation of government. He was only saying that if the people he believed were coming out for their lands will not leave the forest, but will continue to terrorize them, he was going to lead a resistance. Now, there are two issues. One, constitutionally, he is not right to have asked people to vacate that place because there is freedom of association. But he was merely reacting. So in the case of Igbo, what you need is a sit down with him and to help him appreciate what the government is coming up with as a policy. Because rightly or wrongly, like it or you don't, people are beginning to give him the popularity. And it is how government deals with him that will determine whether or not you get the best out of him. I am telling you, if the Igbo is dealt with in accordance with the law, you will have a peaceful resolution to the crisis. If Igbo is manhandled or mistreated, then you are likely going to have another Abubakar Shakau, because that was how Abubakar Shakau started in Borno State. I say Abubakar Shakau, the founder of Boko Haram. He started as a cleric. DSS were collecting intelligence when he started. He was talking, calling attention to the inhuman treatment of their people by the police. Government didn't do anything about it. Intelligence report then were coming to the governor. Governor was just taking it and keeping it by the side because he felt at any time he could deal with them. Now, it got to a point where these people then started this ideology that in fact you can fight against the state. The same thing with Igbo now. If you deal with him in accordance with the law, help him appreciate what the government is doing, that's fantastic. If you say you will start catching him and locking him up and things like that, you will produce multiple Igbo, and before you know, it leads to a crisis, again of the type in the north and the southwest.
Now, quickly here before we continue, our listeners, you can also send your messages on the show on WhatsApp 0909-217-2973, 0909-217-2973. And of course, on Twitter at Classic FM 973. Don't forget the hashtag, the Discourse. And we already have some here. Quickly, let me take some of them here. He says, hi, when the governors want to push responsibilities, they say they're not in charge of police. But when they want to oppress the opposition, they take charge of security. Governor Wike protected a judge and Mrs. Nunez the other time with the same men in uniform. This is coming from Bugizi, I hope that's the name. And of course, a few other messages we'll take as we go. But listening to you quickly here, Daniel, one of the things I want us to look into, you didn't quite go deeply into it. You used the words, you said, I hope some of the governors or some of the political leaders are not using, you know, these people to foment trouble. Keep in mind that the governor of Zamfara State had said before now he was going to name names. And he said if there was a caveat, there was a conditional clause there, if the girls have successfully been reunited with their families. They have since rejoined their families. Shouldn't we be asking or pleading with him to come forth with more information on what he knows about those who are behind these series of kidnappings?
I have a feeling that he has done that, which must be the reason why the National Security Advisor was said to have said that intelligence coming to them has confirmed individuals, politicians and individuals behind this crisis, and that they will soon arrest them. So it's very possible that the governor, having received this intelligence, he may have communicated to law enforcement and without having to tell Nigerians. But the truth of the matter is that even the governor in Katsina, if he can be honest, he will be honest, definitely will have intelligence. You see, in every state, you have the commissioner of police and the police unit. The police unit in your state, they have criminal division, they have intelligence department. You have Department of State Services that have better structure and facilities to collect intelligence for you. And just like you said when we started, when they do these weekly meetings, they get intelligence briefing. Sometimes it is the political office holder that decides how he uses the intelligence. They will tell you in the intelligence community that all they can do is to collect it, process it, and bring it to policymakers. It is left for the policymakers to decide how they use it. There are some states that the governor gets the intelligence, he acts promptly, proactively. And there are some states, they take this intelligence and convert it to their benefit. If, for example, intelligence coming to a governor is that the criminal element behind the crisis in the state, a set of people that he used them in the last election, you see, he would like to suppress this intelligence. He will not want it out because we like it or not in this Nigeria, so sadly, politicians, once election is coming close, it is this same criminal element they resort to. How the Boko Haram started in Borno State was that these boys that politicians were using allegedly at the time, when elections were over, and they left them like that. So no direction, no nothing to do. So they resorted to arms. At the beginning, they were being settled here and there. And then before you know, it got out of hand. Behind every 9 crises, 8.5 are crises related to public office holders or politicians. But time will tell. And that's why leadership requires decisive action. Like the decision of the president. We must, as a country, decide collectively to call evil evil and not cover it under any form of coloration. But I can tell you that in Zamfara, for example, the governor haven't said one police officer, I think he said 3 police officers, 1 army officer, 16 district heads, and I think 1 emir. That is conclusive that he has not just the number, but even the name of this individual, and he may have communicated to the National Security Advisor or Department of State Services, as the case may be.
But again, you know, sometimes you just would say these are the periphery, these are the paper tigers, the big masquerade are still unmasked because sometimes they tell you one police officer, and you look at the police officer and say, "Oh my God, you mean this inspector is the one that is holding us to ransom as a nation?" So perhaps there's more, you know, to it. Quickly here, someone has helped out here. Omasha here just reminded us of the name Yusuf Muhammad. That was the killing of Yusuf Muhammad.
Yeah, Yusuf Muhammad.
And he went on to say the failure of political leadership in the North has created a vacuum, which is why Sheikh Gumi stepped into it. That there is a vacuum because of the lack of political leadership. So Sheikh Gumi lashed or cashed in on that. And of course, Lekon is saying that your response on Igbo are apt for him. connecting it to how Boko Haram began as well. He also goes on to say, clearly the government ignores a lot and takes no action. In most cases, our government at all levels are never proactive. Now, being proactive is one of the things that I want us to look into here. You have actually been so firm and clear on what you want the government to do, the government at the center. Any governor who seemed to have abdicated his responsibility should be excused. Let's use your word, a state of emergency should be declared in that state. Another issue here, Daniel, is the issue of ransom. Even though there are denials, shouldn't the country be worried that we do not know the exact amount that has been paid so far? Because this just might as well be an avenue for corruption. You can just give the bandits
exactly
maybe 2 naira to buy maybe suya, and you come and you say tomorrow you have given them maybe 1 billion naira.
Exactly. A good example or classical example, I think, is the criminal activities that then was happening between Abuja and Kaduna, when you will hear they kidnap people, they collect 30 million, 80 million. But anytime law enforcement arrests these individuals and they start confessing, they will tell you, this one, the last I collected 150,000 was what they gave. This one will say what they gave me was 20,000. When you hear that they collect 30, 40, there must be somebody using them that is collecting the money. And one thing about politicians in Nigeria, to be honest, is that the minute one crime goes free, another one tries, then the political office holders, because they have the mastery and the monopoly, they take advantage of it. So, for example, I'm not saying that to any governor, but I'm just giving instance for those who are quick to say they will negotiate. You have to be seen as a suspect, because I'll give you an example. You say you negotiated, you get money. We will see in the video clip how the money is being given. You will not give any form of detail to how the money is given. And the individuals who claim to have collected the money, the way they do it in America is that anytime there is a criminal element, there's any form of criminal element emerge and begin to do such a thing, the law enforcement, especially from the intelligence, are going to be at the background. That first negotiation, so to speak, or bargain that will happen might likely be the last, because they will profile the individual, profile to their sponsors, and nip it in the bud. But in Nigeria, it's an everyday occurrence. You are kidnapping here, you are kidnapping tomorrow morning. The president went to Katsina, few kilometers to where he was, they kidnap people. Has it ever happened in any country? That kind of audacity must have conspiracy and collaboration with politicians. And so we are saying that if the president if the president does not take a decisive step, what will happen is that, take for example, a governor or a commissioner, or even somebody from the opposition party, all you need is just to find 6 armed robbers. And because our schools are not protected, just go to the school at night, kidnap, let's say 5 or 10 of them, inform the people that you have kidnapped. The next thing is that every day it will be covered in the press, and then the government will be asking for negotiation. So we are now gradually drifting from the duties of governors to do infrastructure and govern well, to a point where if the governor negotiates the release of 20 girls, it's as good as saying he has delivered dividends of democracy to his state. This is where we're moving to, that the achievement that the governor will give throughout his term will be that I negotiated the release of bandits, the release of students. So that's why the government must look into it critically and never come. In the whole of the North, Suleiman, there is only one governor two governors that I can vouch for who are no nonsense to these criminal activities. That is the governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, who never missed his word when he said he does not support that, and the governor of Borno, who confronted the army for their indolence and their incapacity to push this Boko Haram. The other governors are passive and are quiet, or may have been intimidated by this criminal element, which is very sad, because this is complete 8 years. We are going to the complete 8 years of administration where a northerner rules. And during this period of 8 years, the North went 100 years backward. It has never happened. Usually, when somebody from a particular extraction comes to power, it will be the opportunity to liberate that place. For every single day that Buhari remains in government, the North is going backwards. By the time the power now shift to the south in the 8 years' time. Where do you start?
It will
take 50.
Listening, sorry to cut you, listening to you call just two governors, which I'm very sure Nigerians, some Nigerians will agree with you, El Rufai, and of course, governor of Borno, that's your own state. Does this also go back to the leadership recruitment process? There was a time you attempted to go into the Senate, and a lot of people were excited that a young Nigerian from the north is giving it a shot. How do we get people who are capable, people who are visionary, people who have an agenda and also can execute same to be so voted into office?
Now, I can tell you in that regard that there seems to be a little bit of revival in the north, and I will give you a perspective. Now, in the past, because of the way politics is played in the north, the educated ones never get to see the light of positions in political office. And that gave the impression to the people in the south and the rest of the world that the north is backward educational-wise. No, but just because the educated ones never get the opportunity to be in public office. You hardly can see somebody with diploma, or not to talk of degree as a governor in the past. But now, when you come to the north, you are counting, if you have to count, you may say maybe one or two are not degree holders, the rest are degree holders. And some of them have held, for example, in Borno State, the reason why the governor is succeeding to the extent to which he's succeeding, giving premium to education, is because he's a professor. He understands education. He knows education will bring liberation. There is no part of this world where you give people education and you come back 20 years later, they have not changed completely. But there is one other part of politics that is a problem in the north. It's called the politics of religion. Some of us, unfortunately, are northerners, but who are Christians, who have found it very difficult breaking through. There are elite ones that understand who you are, they understand the positives. But because the level of education in the north is not very vast, people hardly accept people of religion. But we don't see that as an excuse, because in life generally, you keep pushing and pushing and pushing until you're able to see the light of the day. But in a nutshell, there is a great deal of revival in terms of qualified people and competent people coming into government. But I must say that, Suleiman, before you move on to the next question, that education is one thing and leadership is another thing. So you can find a graduate as a governor in a state that may not even deliver one road of construction. That's another thing. It goes beyond education to lead in political sphere. You recruit people with leadership quality. And leadership quality first is by you experiencing it, either in community organizing, either by participating in any form of leadership position. Then you know how to manage people and how to manage resources. But if it is education, you can have professor as a public office holder and become a professor of corruption.
You know, one other aspect I wanted us to talk about so that it doesn't look like just security. You see, security can overwhelm you, Daniel. You know, we wanted to talk about a whole lot of issues. I'm hoping that we can also have another time in the nearest future to come back again and discuss this. Yeah. But one sore point has to do with the National Assembly. It was only recently the National Assembly is trying to see how they can rejig the Constitution. And for instance, you know, the unions are smarting, you know, for another big strike action, because the issue of minimum wage is going to be taken off the exclusive list. So on the one hand, people scream and say, we want to be practicing true federalism. And when there is an attempt sometimes to, you know, activate true federalism, we see some leaders in court also fighting against a certain aspect of what would mean true federalism.
Yeah, this is part of the problem that politicians study with the masses. And that's why it gives them the easy maneuverability, you know, in terms of controlling narrative and finding themselves back to power, or finding what they want having its course at the end of the day. I give you a good example. You know, governors are the ones behind the evolution of power. They felt they haven't got enough resources, they haven't got enough power, We don't have the state police. If we have the state police, we will do this. We don't have state electoral commission. If we do have, we'll do this. If we have education removed from the exclusive and given it to us, we'll be able to fashion education. You hear them talk like that. But there's what is called testing the microphone. The president signed into law autonomy of the local government. And don't forget, local government is under the state. The governors not only rejected, resisted, they have jointly promised that they are going to sue the federal government. All of them together, jointly, including the progressive states, resisting autonomy of their local government. You see the problem? The local government, actually, there is no state, there is no federation that is not in a state, and there is no state that is not in a local government. But they just tested the microphone and you're resisting it. So in a way, sometimes when you dig deep behind agitation or public office holder, to give you a perspective, the governors are more powerful than the president by our own present setup of federalism. The governors, they are more powerful than the president. I'll give you an example. The president's ministers must be nominated by the respective governors. The president's ambassadors must be nominated by the governors. The DGs of MDS must be nominated by the governors. Then you come to any other federal appointment, it is that governor that will nominate. By the time they push all of these, their agents as aides to the president does not have a say in who becomes a commissioner. He doesn't have a say on who becomes education secretary. He doesn't have a say on who becomes who in the local government. Yet they say that is not enough. Now they are asking you to devolve power and give them more resources. The little power you have given to them, what have they done with it? They oppress opponent. So it's a narrative thing. It's a narrative thing. They give you the impression, if we have this, we will do this. And then you ask them the question, the one you have, what have you done? How can you, for God's sake, Mr. Suleiman, from 1999 till today, there is no single person who has attained the position of a governor that drops from this governorship position without being wealthier than 5 governors in the United States of America put together. You bring it to the Congress, it's the same thing. Our lawmakers earn more, well, allegedly, than even the lawmakers in the United States. And yet the state of Texas is larger than Nigeria. The budget of New York Fire Service after 9/11 was more than the budget of Nigeria that year. So in terms of landmark, in terms of resources, and then you talk of facilities, they do have better than us, yet we must earn more than them. This is where the problem is. I am looking forward to a day, that's my prayer, when the media houses and the press in Nigeria would take like 6 months and x-ray the governors and their states and whether or not they are delivering. When we do that, after 3-4 months, there will be what I call a revolution of changes in Nigeria. Now we have been zeroed and programmed to believe that even your local government responsibility is that of the president. It's very easy. And there was a time a governor in the Southwest was very good at that. Anytime there's a crisis in his state, he will issue one press release against Buhari. You say Buhari is vegetable in London, and I have evidence, I'll push it. And the direction will now go to the center. It's very easy for a governor to dodge and dodge by just pointing accusing finger to the president. But if you understand what true federalism, as we are talking, 90% of what happens to a man is 90% of what happens to a man happened to him or happens to him in his state.
Well, I think you've been so good to Nigerians because when I say so good, you've always volunteered your time, your resources. I mean, you just left church when you logged on to join us to talk about some national matters. But again, keep in mind some of the things you said. So I'll give you that. You'll be the very first. I'll tell this too. There's something we're working on, that is almost as, something that will look at issues keenly, the way you have highlighted them, and we'll bring you into all of that. So the media, Classic FM, and of course, also Lagos Talks, they're looking at some of those things to seeing how Nigeria, not just Lagos State, how Nigeria can become a better nation. You've said something about I love local government autonomy. That debate is huge, as big. It is something akin to saying, don't tell us what to do. We know what to do. And again, the most amazing thing here, Daniel, is that the local government chairman, or that's when we have chairmen, if not administrators, or caretaker chairman, they also will say, we're okay. We're on the side of our governors. We don't want to be autonomous. How strange can that be? You come in, you've been voted, and you say, our governors are saying everything the way we want it to go. We don't want autonomy. We want to stay behind our governors. Whatever they give to us on the plate, we'll work with it. Is that why sometimes, because I live in a local government, within a local government in Lagos, is that why when things go bad, the only thing we say is that we're looking at, for instance, Governor Sanwo-Olu, we're not looking at the local government chairman, because even when you go there, nothing does work. So how can we make them accountable if they're not autonomous?
Right. So this underscores the point that I'm saying, that they are programmed. It is still part of the mystical manipulation of governments. In fact, I call it state executive banditry. That's what I call it. Why do I call it? It's because the state legislators and the local government chairmen are abducted by the governors. They have been kidnapped by the governors after election. They are actually in the custody. So whatever the governor said is what they do. I remember many years ago during Obasanjo, when they introduced ALGON, Association of Local Governments, whatever, of Nigeria, when Obasanjo was pushing for a reform, they accepted. But by the time the governors began to gain control over them, for example, local government election, is it an election in Nigeria? It's local government appointment. It's not election. Where have you seen them voting? So he appoints you. How can you say you are looking for autonomy? That's the way they are looking at it. That's why they don't welcome that autonomy thing. Push it further to the state legislators. They can never legislate anything that is contrary to the wishes and aspirations of the government. Do you know there is a state in this country? They came together and passed a resolution that their governor should run for president. They have to stop even looking at activities of their state. Can there be any problem greater than that? Let me be honest, Mr. Suleiman, and to your listeners. That underscores the point that we have not scratched a little bit of why our democracy is not working in Nigeria. It's not at the center. It is in our state and in our local government. If you permit the local government the autonomy, it means local tax, wildlife park, recreational facilities. There are quite a number of things that the local local government will use and operate, including the generating of revenue for the state. But the local governor, the state legislature, and any other person appointed in the state works at the whims and caprices and to the wishes of the governor. You dare not imagine it. Not saying it, you dare not imagine it. If in your dream you find yourself opposing the governor, you had better wake up from the dream, because the next day you are going to be terminated from your appointment.
But
that
let
again is the problem.
Take this, because before we round off, just someone trying to set the record straight here. So please quickly, Daniel, the state of Texas is not larger than Nigeria, and he's been able to give the figures. Texas is approximately 678,052 square kilometers, while Nigeria is approximately 923,768 square kilometers, making Nigeria 36% larger than Texas. Meanwhile, the population of Texas is minus 25.1 million people. If you look this side by side with Nigeria, 201 million. Again, talking about our figure, census quickly, we the Nigerians, they keep putting the figure up. Has there been any census lately? How do we know if we're truly 200 million and counting?
I think it's a projection, but there is a constitutional amendment proposal that we did at the Office of the Deputy President of the Senate, that every 10 years there should be census. But back to the issue of Texas, I think I would try to check my facts right. Okay. When I say Texas is larger than Nigeria, I'm not talking about population, because population of America is just a little above Nigeria. If Nigeria is 200, America is 200, you can understand that. And then economy, of course, Texas, it has more economy than Nigeria. But I think the other time, I think some years back, I overheard someone from the US saying that in terms of landmass, that the state of Texas is larger than Nigeria. But I will check that fact. But assuming that it is less than that, maybe you add one more state to Texas, you have two, equal and above a country like Nigeria. And then if you push further and look at lawmakers in Texas, public office of holders in Texas, what they earn, there's no way you can compare that with Nigeria. But in terms of the census, I know that it is when a government comes into power, he decides that, okay, let there be census. There is no law that stipulates census should be like that or this way, but we're introducing that in the ongoing amendment that every 10 years there should be census.
Well, I think it's a fine place for us to leave it. I do hope we should be able to take your time very soon again to come on the show. One of the take home for us today with you is for every day that President Buhari remains in power, the North moves backwards 100 years. That is something the leaders in that region should all ponder about and see how they can bring about peace development to that region and see how it can actually translate into peace and development in other parts of Nigeria. It's been a fantastic moment with Daniel Boala, who is a legal practitioner, Notary Public and Barrister at Lincoln's in London. Thank you for joining us today. And as soon as we're done, the YouTube link will be out on the Classic FM YouTube channel. And we'll also send you a link, Daniel. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay,
so everyone.
All right, yeah, bye-bye. It's a wrap on the show. The Discourse returns next week. Bye-bye.